Model for the last 2 days, so I'll build the model for 60 days, I'll let it run for 2 days, just see what goes on. Nothing goes on really. But then this is when I initiate the model. Within 24 hours, I'm 2 degrees out. What's the point? I'm going 3 days, I'm going to be 100 degrees out. Sorry. Done. Second half of my second year, so it took me quite some time to get familiar with the ARIMA stuff, including the external. Obviously it's a no-brainer, we have to, okay? So the equation looks exactly like before, but there's another part that is similar to the internal, but it takes account the external stuff. And you would think it would work. So now I'm initiating the modeling and the predictions in sort of mid of July. This part is magnified here. I've got a huge improvement from 24 hours to, I can predict 7 days. Is that good enough? My supervisor says, I don't know, figure out. One of the problems with this ARIMA stuff is because they're capturing the past behavior. So I've initialized the modeling here. It picks up whatever the locant trend is here and it produces that, and then it would never go back. If I was to initialize modeling here, you would see that red line would just go down here. If it was here, it would go straight. So it picks up local behavior and then it sort of repeats that. But this is not what that's not what the house does. Okay, and this is one house I've got. This is one living room. I've got 411. So end of second year, I've got nothing. I'm really worried, man. Really worried now. It's the third year. I don't really have much stuff. So I go back and I look to my data set again. I start looking not to one house, but I just need to look to more houses. So there's the second house. There's the second living room. Sorry, we're talking about spaces, not homes. Okay. They're quite different in terms of their behavior. Can I get one model to capture both? That's 2 homes. Well, when it becomes 4, it becomes 30, it becomes 130, it becomes 200. And that's half of my data set, okay? But when you look at the big picture here, I think you sort of realize that all homes, at least a very big percentage of them, they do some sort of double W, quad W movement of internal temperature, okay? So all of them, they seem to be going one way, and that's, I mean, they're free floating, you expect it, okay? That's the external temperature having an effect on the internal, and some of them are thin, some of them are thicker, okay? But overall, there's something going on there that I haven't realized. So I went back, and I went a bit simpler, and these guys, Box and Jenkins, they've developed this methodology that says, you know, see your data, have a really good look at them, do a first initial analysis, and then every time series, at least the ones that they're talking about, once you do some adjustments, you should be able to identify the components of the series, okay? So I've got them measured, and I can see there's an upward trend, and I can also see there's some sort of variation around that trend, and of course there's an error between these two. But they say, you know, identify these components and sort of estimate them, try to model them, get them together, you've got your model, check it, go to your forecasts. And this is sort of what I decided to do. So I've got my measured up there. I'm taking the daily mean as that sort of movement we've seen before in all of them. And then if I take one outside the other, I get this noise over here, and I'm calling this a trend, and I'm calling this cyclical component. And I need to be able to model them so I can predict them, get them together, and go forward from that. So I'm gonna run through both trend and cyclical models. Please bear with me. I'm not sure this is the best way of doing it, but let's see that together. So that was the measured internal. Now I'm getting the external. So remember, I need to be able to predict that trend, and it's responsible. The external is driving that. So I must be, and I've got good correlations between external and internal. So must be a way that I can relate one to the other and forecast the internal based on the external. So there's my trend of the internal. That's my daily mean of the internal. And that's the daily mean of the external. And oh God, they don't really look good. They don't look like they're okay, it's similar, but it's not the best. If you correlate them, it's pretty bad. I need to find another form of the external. And thankfully there is one. It's the exponentially weighted moving average of the daily mean of the external given by that long equation up there. I've talked briefly on my second slide about this. It's the sort of running mean, and some texts give it as such. So I've got something good here to work on, okay? And what that says is the external is given by, whatever the temperature is right now, plus whatever the temperature was a little bit before, etc., etc. But these two correlate greatly together. So I can express one as a function of the other. So I can express the internal as a function of the external. And I can model it. Great. I've got one model, finally. And it's good. Whatever is in red brackets, it goes for the whole of the data set, so 411 spaces. So I've got this value averaged, okay? For 411 spaces, that's pretty good. Okay, that's year 3. Oh, come on. So I can model the trend. What is left is to be able to model the cyclical, which is a beautiful thing, really. So there we go again. That's the internal. That's my trend. Take one outside the other. You get left with this noise. And that's not as easy as this nice floaty movement. This really spikes, and if I was to show you 411 of these, they're quite different. So I've done something, there's still more work to do, but what I've done initially is I am taking, I'll just tell you roughly, average of 1 AMs, average of 2 AMs, average of 3 AMs for all 62 days, creating an average wave around it, and fitting that thing. I hope you can see the blue is measured, and then this red is the average. So I've got something here. Yes, I kind of do, because now this is again throughout my data set. Now I can initialize my conditions here. I can call 62 days up front. That's a lot better from 24 hours. It's a lot better from 24 hours. It's still not great. I've got peaks here that I cannot really get to, but I'm working on it, and I'm confident I can get closer and closer. So overall conclusions. Hold on in time. Rush, we were talking about this before. Just don't give up. I've had so many people saying, "What you're trying to do, it's not possible." But then, as you do things, you realize, I need to look over there, speak to him, speak to whatever it is, and then it sort of magically comes together. So I do have an R-squared improvement, a massive one. We know going from 0.6 to 0.65 is big. Going from nothing to something is even bigger. But the question I'm asking, what does R-squared mean really? When is a model good? What makes a model good? Okay. So if we're to really stretch this out, you could see that I'm bang on the measured, but I'm missing these. So my R-squared is really good, but if I was to predict overheating, say, okay, because we're talking about summertime, I really need these peaks. So it's good, but it's not good yet. Another thing to say is just, sometimes I just went for this complex stuff, and it kind of worked, and my head was like fussy, and I wasn't really confident in what I was doing, but the simple stuff sometimes work incredibly well. That's done. Future work. Improve my cyclical model. I've done work in this. We can discuss. Run some future weather data. See how these homes behave in the future. Get some dynamic thermal simulation going to. Don't worry about this word anymore. Like verification, I guess. No? To see how the model works, and if it does agree with this highly smart modeling that we have these days. And also validate the same models with measured temperatures from different homes, passive powers, etc. And I'll leave it here for now. Thank you so much for your time.